Hey guys, welcome back to NFL Trading Room. Today we've got another fun summer scouting episode for you. We're breaking down the wide receivers today, a very fun position. It's a deep class this year. We've got 21 guys to dive into, so let's go ahead and get this list started. We're going to kick this off just mentioning all the receivers that I watched, starting at 21 and going down. So we've got our day three grade bucket. We've got wide receiver 21, Anthony Evans, the third out of Mississippi State. Ian Strong, the wide receiver that transferred from Rutgers to Cal. Ashton Bethel Roman, Texas A&M. Jace Brown, who transferred from Kansas State to LSU. Devin McEwen, who transferred from UTSA to Ohio State. And then at 16, TJ Moore out of Clemson. Now jumping into the day two portion of this list, we've got 15 receivers with a day two or higher grade. So very fun class. And there were a lot of players that I didn't even get an eye on. So could definitely even be a deeper class than what I have listed out. But at 15, KJ Duff out of Rutgers. At 14, Mario Craver out of Texas A&M. At 13, Mike Matthews out of Tennessee. At 12, it's Ryan Coleman Williams out of Alabama. At 11, it's Nick Marsh, who transferred from Michigan State to Indiana. At 10, it's Brian Wesco Jr. out of Clemson. At 9, Braylon Staley out of Tennessee. At 8, it's Junior Sherrill out of Vanderbilt. 7 is Ryan Wingo out of Texas. And then 6 is DeAndre Moore Jr., who transferred from Texas to Colorado. Getting this list kicked off at wide receiver 5 is one of the more fun players that I've watched so far in this class, and that is Houston wide receiver Amari Thomas. Thomas has a bit of an interesting build. He comes in at 5'10", 204 pounds, broke out in 2025, put up 67 receptions for 966 yards and 12 touchdowns. Though he is shorter, that 204-pound frame means he's firmly built. I think he has the physicality to play the Z on the outside and win against more press coverage. His hands are very reliable, and I like his effectiveness in contested catch situations, which is surprising given his lack of height and lack of arm length. But again, that goes back to him being a strong player and him handling contact well at the catch point. He's really fun after the catch. He can burn past defenders with his blazing top speed and quick acceleration. And he's also pretty fluid laterally. This burst really translates into his skill set as a route runner as well. And he really plays with suddenness to keep corners off balance. There are a lot of times where he's running some sort of short to intermediate double move where he may run a 5 or 6 yard hitch and then cut it in or out. He's very sudden and fluid on those. That was something that really jumped off his tape. As far as his work against zone coverage, I like his ability to find throwing windows and give his quarterback an opportunity to find him in between the zones. Also thought his awareness of the sideline was also surprising. The body control that he displayed to keep his feet in bounds while he's falling out of bounds, making a catch, again, at that size is really impressive. But again, with that size, that does limit him a little bit. With that below average catch radius, it can be hard for him to adjust the throws that are outside of his frame, whether that be low or on the outside or above his helmet. There are just times where the throw could definitely be better, but Amari Thomas could also help his quarterback out and make a play outside of his frame. But with that lack of length, it's hard physically for him to do that. While I like his suddenness and fluidity as a route runner, I think the overall route salesmanship could improve in 2026. I'd like to see a little bit more work with head fakes and rocker steps and things like that. But I'm hoping that comes along. He's got the skills to be able to improve in that area. While he possesses lateral fluidity, I tend to question his vertical fluidity when he's coming back to the football on curls, comebacks, routes like that, where he's having to decelerate. The deceleration isn't as quick as when he explodes out of a route. It just doesn't look as fluid for him as some other movements that he does on the field. And even with his strength and compactness, again, that lack of length and overall height can make it tough for him to consistently win against physical outside corners. But that's why I think he's best in the slot. I think he can play the Z at the NFL level, but ideally he's in the slot. But definitely, Amari Thomas was one of my favorite players to watch in this group for sure. Really excited to see where 2026 takes him. And Thomas comes in with a second round grade for me. Jumping in to the top four now, all of these guys have day one grades for me. And we're kicking it off with wide receiver four, Omarion Miller, who transferred from Colorado to Arizona State. Miller comes in at 6'1", 209 pounds, and put up 20 in 2025. Put up 45 receptions for 808 yards and 8 touchdowns. I think his tape is extremely easy on the eyes. His solid outside frame really gives him the versatility to play any of the three wide receiver positions. There are multiple times throughout the game where you see him lined up at X, and then he's lined up at the Z, and then he's lined up in the slot. He can play any receiver position out there. I think one of the things that stood off of his tape was his natural ability to just catch the football. There are some pass catchers in this class, both wide receivers and tight ends, that seem to fight the football a little bit in the air. He's not like that at all. He tracks the football very well vertically. His hand technique is solid. I really like his ability to just naturally catch the football. To me, that's more important than to other people. I think that natural ability to catch the football is definitely translatable to. I think he's also just a very fluid transitional athlete. His ability to cut in and out of breaks, to run with smoothness, to maintain speed in and out of his cuts is impressive. And I see that before and after the catch as well, able to maintain. I think he's also a fluid decelerator coming back to the football as well. I really like what he does in jump ball scenarios. He tends to levitate in the air. It's like he has the ability to fly almost. And he plays well through contact, plays with late hands as well, which I love on vertical routes and stuff like that. Really shortens the window that a corner has to be able to react to the hands and time up the pass to try to break it up. So I love that he plays with late hands. I also like what he does in the scramble drill. I think he understands where windows are going to open up in scramble drill once the play breaks down. And lastly, I think he really gives a crap as a run blocker, which I appreciate. It's not something that's going to bump a second round receiver up to a first round receiver for me or anything like that. But especially as an offensive line guy, I love seeing the wide receivers get their hands dirty and go out there and block somebody. Do have just a few negatives here with Miller. The focus drops. I said he has natural hands. His hang technique is good. There are just times where he took his eye off the ball too quick in 2025. Like to see that cleaned up in 2026. I do think, with him being a fluid decelerator, I would like to see him work back to the football on curls and comebacks more aggressively. There were times where he didn't work back to the football very aggressively, and a corner was able to jump the route and make a play on the football. So I would like to see that improve as well. I do think he's an above average route runner due to his athletic capabilities and his fluidity, but the salesmanship is still a work in progress. There are definitely flashes in there of him, using the head fakes, using the rocker steps to create extra separation. That's just got to be more consistent in 2026. But he has all the skills to be able to do that. Love what he can do before and after the catch. I think he's really a complete receiver. Really excited to watch him at Arizona State in a Kenny Dillingham offense, taking over probably that Jordan Tyson role alongside Reed Harris, who's a transfer from Boston College. Should be a really fun receiver duo over there in Tempe. But really, really like Omarion Miller, and he's got a first-round grade for me. Next up at wide receiver 3 is Charlie Becker, the receiver out of Indiana. This is another guy. We've talked about it some with different positions in this class, but one of the best stories in college football last year was a true sophomore that wasn't playing much, and then Elijah Surratt, Indiana's top target, goes down with injury, and Charlie Becker's inserted into the lineup and starts exploding onto the scene to the point where when Surratt came back, they couldn't take Becker off the field and rolled with Surratt and Cooper Jr. and Charlie Becker. And the targets didn't stop going Charlie Becker's way. He still produced at a high level. Over the last 7 games, he caught 27 passes for 522 yards and 3 touchdowns. So definitely he's going into next year as their wide receiver 1. I would expect that production to continue to increase. But let's just talk about who Becker is as a receiver. Really a big-bodied vertical threat. He possesses elite burst and acceleration off the ball, along with a lightning-quick release. He really gets off the line of scrimmage in a hurry, and that gives him the ability to consistently stack cornerbacks vertically and win down the football field. He's really straight-up dominant at the catch point with high pointing, the football, and with his long arms, he's able to pluck the football effortlessly from the air. And really, overall, his ball skills are tremendous. His ability to always be in the right position, use his body to wall off defensive backs, and create that positioning to have the best chance at coming down with the pass really is impressive. I think especially for a 6'3" receiver with those longer limbs, his fluidity as a transitional athlete is very apparent on his tape. I think he uses savvy head fakes and really effective rocker steps at the top of the route, mostly being on vertical routes to create that separation. He gets a lot of consistent separation down the field. His hands are also as reliable as they come. He didn't have a single drop in 2025, and hopefully that continues in 2026. Lastly, with him being on the outside, he's a true X vertical threat. I love that he competes as a blocker. That's just the icing on the cake with him. He really gets after it in that phase of the game. Just a few of the negatives I have with him, though. He does have a limited route tree right now. That's not saying he doesn't have the ability to expand that in the future. Just the role he was in at Indiana last year, being technically the third receiver, though I thought he was the best receiver on that team down the stretch. Most of what Indiana asked him to run were just mostly vertical routes and hitches, playing that true outside deep threat role. So I would look for that to expand in 2026 with him being the wide receiver one. So excited to see that. And then as far as his yak capabilities, his yards after the catch, there's not a whole lot there. I think he's got the athleticism to eventually be more of a yak threat, but that's just not something that's part of his game right now. And then as a decelerator, he's not as fluid in that department as he is in other facets. Sometimes it can take him a while to kind of break down and come back to the football. I did highlight his elite burst and acceleration, though I don't think he has the elite top speed to pair with it. I think he's got good speed, but I think some of the speed can kind of taper off the further down the field he goes. I don't think he sustains it as well as his initial burst and acceleration would indicate, but he does get so much of that separation early in the route that he's still able to have enough separation at the catch point. Just speaking overall, his vertical ability, his ability to win downfield, create separation, and his dominance at the catch point, I think really highlights that this could be a player that really ascends in 2026, like pretty much all of us are expecting him to do. Really excited to see him in 2026 as that wide receiver one at Indiana. Excited to see his skill set continue to improve. And he gets a first round grade for me. Missing out on the top spot, but no shame in being wide receiver two in this class. It is Cam Coleman, who transferred from Auburn to Texas. Coleman comes in at 6'3", 210 pounds, so he's that bigger outside threat. Definitely an X receiver at the next level. And it will be exciting in 2026 to see him get to play with a functional quarterback in a functional offense. The quarterback tape from the last two teams he played on at Auburn his freshman year and at Auburn in his sophomore year was pretty dreadful. So excited to see him play with Arch Manning, and I'm sure that will be a big breath of fresh air for him. But Coleman is an electric athlete with an electric top gear and electric twitch. He really moves like he's a joystick out there, and 6'3" receivers really shouldn't be moving with the level of fluidity that he does. His really quick firing feet at the top of the route allow him to burst past the corner in any direction, whether that's vertical, lateral, across the field, anywhere on the field. I really like his work in jump ball situations. He, like Miller, seems to levitate in the air and plays with late, accurate hands, plucking the football really effortlessly out of the air. And really, for a receiver that I hadn't done tape study on, I had just watched him, as a college football fan, his first 2 years. He was way more physical than I was expecting him to be, and he was willing as a blocker to stick his nose in there and do the dirty work, which I really liked seeing out of him. Really, a lot of the negatives with him, I think, point to the Auburn offense at the time there with Hugh Freeze. And I just thought the way Auburn limited his abilities was very apparent on his tape. His route tree was rather raw, but I think that's more due to the offensive system that Auburn ran. I think he's got the capabilities to be a more diverse route runner. Now, I do think in the routes that he did run that were more traditional, there was certainly room to improve. But in that offense, he wasn't running a lot of those, so there's just not a lot of reps of that. So I'm excited to see him in a Steve Sarkisian offense and run more of those traditional routes. There are a few focus drops across this tape that I'd like to see him clean up, just be more consistent with his hands. The release as electric of an athlete that he is, I do think the release off the line of scrimmage is just a tick slow. And really, after the catch, he doesn't offer a whole lot. I think that may be able to change with the way that Sarkisian runs a lot of these crossing routes across the field, and really gets the ball in playmakers' hands and allows them to go to work after the catch. I think we could see more of his skill set in that area of things next season. But really, the second that I turn on that Texas tape and I see more variety and nuance as a route runner, I think that vaults him up to the blue chip territory for me. Right now, he gets a first round grade for me, but he is razor close to that blue chip territory for me. And coming in at wide receiver one, everyone could have guessed this. It's Jeremiah Smith out of Ohio State. There was no doubt about it. Jeremiah Smith comes in at 6'3", 225 pounds. He's the best receiver I've ever scouted by a decent margin. Now, that's not saying a lot. I've only done a full-length big board for the last two drafts, 2025 and 2026, as far as just watching the film, grading all the positions, stuff like that. But he definitely within that time frame, he is easily the best receiver I've watched. And Smith has been doing this his entire career. From the second he set foot on the field as a freshman, he's been the best player on the football field anytime he's taken the field at Ohio State. His Venus flytraps for hands. His hands are huge. He's able to dominantly catch the football, whether that's in contested situations, whether that's over the top of a defender, whether that's working back to the football. He's only got a 1.8% drop rate in his career. There were a couple, I think, drops against Texas early in the season, and really didn't see that at all the rest of the season. His massive frame and catch radius make it really an utter nightmare for any cornerback guarding him. We'll talk about some of the route running conversations with him later, but he's just so physically gifted and so filled out physically and so strong. It's really hard for corners to get hands on him and contain him, regardless of the route that he's running. His verticality, I think, is I have it listed here. His verticality is like an explosively accelerated locomotive. He looks like a runaway train out there on the field, just burning down the field, and there's nothing in front of him that can stop him. He's just very strong, very powerful, and very, very fast. Once he gets to that burning top speed, really there's nothing defenders can do to knock him off his route path, to kind of displace him and throw the play off as far as the route timing conversation goes. He's very physical at the line of scrimmage as well, getting off a press, using his hands well, and he steps on the toes of corners at the top of the route well as well. His ball skills are incredible. He's able to track the football very effectively deep down the field. And of course, we've already touched on his ability in contested situations. And you don't say this much about 6'3", 225-pound receivers, but he is a legitimately lethal deep threat. And I think his best route is the post route. He dominantly runs a post route. His ability to just stack a corner and cut inside and continue to accelerate and create that extra separation is very apparent on his tape. Just a couple of the negatives that I see with him. I don't see a whole lot of creativity after the catch. I know at 225 pounds, that does limit some of the fluidity with him, able to make sharp cuts after the catch. I mean, he's got that runaway locomotive freight train style that I think could translate to some more powerful yak reps. But there's just not a whole lot of creativity in that area of things. I think also the route salesmanship still could come along. I don't think he's as polished of a route runner as some think he is. The Julio comps I'm not mad at, but I think Julio was much more fluid and definitely a better route runner at this stage in his career than Jeremiah Smith. But I don't think the route salesmanship is bad by any means. But simply put, he's the best player in this class for a reason, and he's certifiably blue chip grade for me. He's probably the best prospect I've ever officially put a grade on. All right, guys, that does it for the wide receiver video of the summer scouting series. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to go down below, drop a like, drop a comment, and make sure you tap that subscribe button. That would let us know that you're enjoying the content. We'll continue to bring content like this to you throughout the entire draft season. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.